Good morning, this is Sue Chemnitz, and I'm an artist, as you know, those of you who are on iCreate. I'm an art journaler, which you probably know too, and I just love to paint and I love to goof around, and one of the things that I absolutely love about this art journaling thing is that you don't have to be like this fabulous artist to do it. There are a few guidelines maybe, but most of all, the only thing it requires is the Lord, and that you do it as much as you can, because the more that you do something that you love, the better you're going to get at doing it. So again, welcome this morning, and I encourage you to share this little video with people. And here we are all set up here. You're going to notice that I already have a little background on these, and I do have a video on my YouTube channel, which is under Sue Chemnitz, about just putting a little bit of color in the background at the same time that you're doing the gessoing and maybe some I just like a little bit of color. And as a matter of fact, I didn't even like the pink and the yellow that was going on in there, so early this morning I tried putting a little white over there, so white over that. So nothing is unchangeable, and if it is, there's more paper in the world. So there you go. For supplies this morning, let me just show you a little bit of what we're using. This is a bristle mixed media paper that I get in a tablet. And then the paints that we're going to be using are, oh, I don't have my purple over here. That would be tragic. Okay, the paints that I'm using are sometimes Blick brand, sometimes Liquitex, and sometimes I get golden. I guess I don't have any golden out here this morning, but there's a blue violet light that we're using, and some purple. I've pretty much kept it within that. Another one of my favorites is this green blue light, so we might end up putting a little bit of that in, but mostly I want to stay within this blue and purple range for the background. And then when we do the heart part, we'll get into just a little bit of red. And just a little bit of background about what we're doing this morning. This is our post this week was Liquid Love, and this was it was by Dana Hansen, and just an absolutely incredible, beautiful painting. So I hope you'll look that up on this page if you haven't seen it yet. And then this actually is what I did in response. So we're going to take this and we're going to do a couple cards out of it this morning, so we'll see how this goes. I've collected a couple of stencils to use with this. I do have this up here just because it's my inspiration. So I do have a couple of stencils that I'm going to be using, and gosh, I was telling you a little bit of the backstory. One of my goals for this year is to just share the love, just actually send out or make cards for people. So Valentine's Day is coming, not that you have to wait for that because I'm not planning on it, but I'm gonna try and do two at the same time, and maybe a little bit different things on each one, and we'll just see how each one comes out. But like I said, stencils are a great thing for those of us who aren't maybe as comfortable with doing art. It's just a little helping hand. It's not all up to you. And then I also have a couple of stamps that I'm going to be using. One is the heart, the main heart, and then this is just a threesome heart for the background. So let's get going. Yep, the first thing I'm going to do is just put a little bit of this blue on. I'm not sure what the exact name of it is, but one of my favorite things to do is we'll put a little bit up here too. Is to do what I think of as kind of reverse stenciling. And what I mean by that is I'll put some paint down on the page. Just with my fingers is fine. And then I'll take a baby wipe and actually lift part of that paint up. So here's the stencil. It's a Tim Holtz. He's fabulous. Has a big line of products, and I'm not big on buying products. I have a whole room here of products. Now, if you want your color, I hope I'm not moving the camera, sorry. If you want your color to stay, then the background really has to be dry, and that is one of the reasons that I've done some of the background ahead of time, is because I do want that gesso on there, and I do want the background to be dry when I do it. And that is good. You know what, I'm just going to take this up here. You know, it's a little moist on the back. This one's going to work out better because I didn't have that brilliant idea of putting some of that blue ink on the background. But we may come back and just bring in some of those whites. Now what I'm doing is I'm leaving the stencil as the outline for the background. I was watching, and I'm going to just wipe this off. I don't always wipe my stencils off. Don't want to waste up a lot of time doing that. So, alright, so here is the initial layer on my background, and I'm going to just let that, I'm going to dry it just a little bit, so just plug your ears for a minute. This is actually a heat gun, not a hair dryer. Alright, so then I'm going to take some of my darker, I want a little bit of contrast in there, and I'm still kind of staying on the same side of the color wheel. I still want just those blues in the background. I'm going to actually put a little blob of this over here. And that was a heavy body, one of my favorite purples, Deep Violet. And I have a whole stash over here of just cosmetic sponges, and that's what I use to stencil through. So now I'm kind of doing the positive part of the stencil, and I'm just going to add a little bit of purple. I'm gonna just put a little. I find that when your edges are darker, it pulls your eye in. So I do that. Do a little bit of that over here. And you know what? If you're doing one card, why don't you do two at the same time? Seriously. That way you have two to send out, which is way more fun. You'll see that I have tissue paper underneath this, and I don't always have it underneath because I have that brown paper down here too, but these pieces that I have over here I use a lot in my art. I just will recycle that into the backgrounds that I'm doing. So just bring, and I'm actually going to go all the way over to the edge and bring it in so that it kind of anchors it on one edge. Bring it all the way down. Bring some in up here. I really like the way that flower turned out up there, so just a hint up here. This up here is just kind of a little bit of a reflection of this, just a little continuity. And let's just think for a minute here. Do I want it? I really like the way that comes up from the bottom. You know, the other thing that you can do is if you want to just send out, you know, scan your artwork in and then print it out and send out cards. That would be fabulous too. So we'll just set that stencil aside here. And then I have another one where I actually brought in kind of a little gate in the bottom and in the top. These are all kind of my favorite stencils. I don't always use that real flowery one. I use a lot of the squares and I use a lot of this little, I don't know what you call these. And again, I'm going to not only bring this on the bottom, and I want to say something else here. Purples and blues are kind of some of my favorite colors. I like orange a lot too, orange and just a little tiny bit of red and things. Use your favorites. Don't feel like you always have to be exploring. You can do some exploring. That's healthy and good. Don't be afraid to just use your favorites too. All right, that is plenty of that. I think I have some water over here. You don't have to wash off your sponge, just depends on what you want. So my background is looking blue and purple, and that's exactly what I want it to do. You know what, I'm gonna try and bring a little bit of that white back. If I can figure out what I did with that stencil. Maybe I won't. Got to be here someplace, right? I was just using it. Oh, too funny. Here it is. Let's see. I think I used it like this. I'm just going to get a little bit of white. And bring it back in here. That background made it a little bit darker than I wanted it. And that's good enough. I don't want any more than that. All right, so that's my background. I really like how that's turning out. Of course, the fact that I practiced beforehand helps. But you know, the original one we didn't practice, so there you go. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to make a focal point, and my focal point in this is going to be that little heart. So what I've done is this heart stamp that I'm going to be using is this heart stamp, and what I'm going to do is it's the little things that get you, like where the heck is the pencil here? This will work. Okay, so I'm actually going to draw this heart on. You'll see why in a minute. And I'm kind of going underneath. It doesn't have to be exact, but I'm going underneath. Let's put this one over here. Look at how wild I'm getting, huh? Up a little bit more. I don't want it like centered. A little more visual interest if it's not centered. All right, so I've drawn those on there. That over there. And I'm going to take a brush and actually brush some white on top of the background. And you know what, the reason why I'm doing that, you don't have to do that, but the orange and the red are a little bit more transparent, and so that main heart will turn out better. If I'm kind of hiding the background a little bit. Just a little trick for you. All right, and wash off that brush. And the next thing I'm going to do is just take some orange paint and go over that. Actually, I'm going to let that dry for just a minute because I'm going to cut some little hearts. Remember I told you that I sometimes use my paper that's in the background? That's exactly what this is. So, if you have a little tiny heart stamp, that would work too. There's one. Of course, the trick is to not lose it before we want to use it, right? And you could paint these on too. Just a couple of different ideas here for you. And I'm keeping these rather small. I don't want like a whole, don't want to be overwhelmed with my orange and red. kind of a rule of thumb here. We have lots of blue, little of the orange. That'll help your composition if you, do I want 3? I think I just want 2. So I can move that one over there. All right, so they're all ready. Like I said, the trick will be to not lose those before we need them. All right, now I'm going to go back and do my little orange and red stamp here. I'm going to stamp over this, so it doesn't need to be exact by any means. You know, while I'm doing this, and I'm going to put a little red towards the bottom, while I'm doing this, I want to tell you a story. My husband and I have been shopping for lights for a place that we're building up on Lake Superior, and it has just been quite the process. You know, I just felt like every time I suggested something, it got shot down, and you know, it's so easy to become offended these days, doesn't it? And you know, I did 2 things. First of all, when I was walking into the light store this week, I decided that joy was really important. And I decided no matter what, whatever we agreed or disagreed on, I was going to be there in joy and not let it bug me. And I have to tell you, the first thing that happened was, one of the first things was I found a light that I really, really liked, and I went up to my hubby, Randy, and said, oh my gosh, I absolutely love this light. And in the past, he's always said, oh my gosh, no way, absolutely no way. And this time he didn't. He loved it too. So I don't know. Do you think the attitude of joy had something to do with that? Maybe. Maybe. And you know, the second thing that I realized that I was being neglectful on was I had written in my journal after we had disagreed one night, and I had written in my journal, oh my gosh, what the heck is going on? And what I realized is, in not asking the Lord what could he do for me, but asking the Lord how I could help with that. I guess you can't really do it. I'm preparing over here to do a little stamp thing. But what I realized was that his little snuggle meter was like at 0. It had been forever since I just took a few moments and snuggled with him. So, you know, and he's a snuggler. He really likes that. All right, here's just some little hearts I'm going to put in the background. I'm actually using paint for these, which I don't often do, but I wanted them to stay in the background. So just a little woohoo there. And I'm going to set that aside and put my actual heart stamp on here. And when you buy these stamps, they just come, like this. And you know, the first time I got it, I wrote to the people and said, I don't understand. And you have to actually go and buy one of these acrylic blocks to put on it too. To put it on, I should say. So now I'm actually going to use 2. Here's a purple Stays-On stamp. And I'm going to put a little black on first. And this is actually a Ranger stamp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this down. Can you see this? No. I'm going to set this down. And I'm going to put just a little background of black on there. And then put some purple on. Just want to darken that purple up just a titch. Let's set that over here. Trying to keep my light fleece from having paint all over it. Okay, so let's stamp this on. There. I like it. And I'll put just another layer for my other piece. And this one goes right up here. Now, what I have found is if you don't get a good stamp the first time, it's really hard to match it up the second time. So just be aware. And then I'm going to stick these little guys on. My favorite part, gluing, for those of you who have watched my live videos before. It's like, oh my gosh. I always have glue all over the place. It makes it fun. Probably getting a really good shot of my arm there. And then I'm just going to kind of hold it and see. Yeah. Oops. I prefer not to have glue on my piece here because I'm going to be putting some marker on it, some little scribbles on it, and I am a pro at wrecking those pens. Getting better though. I'm finding the kinds of pens that I like where that doesn't happen. Come on, little guy. All right, here we are. Then we'll put these little, where do we want these to go? You know what? We might see if we like them down here. Oh my gosh. I love glue. Not so much. Yeah, I think I might do that over there. And this one. Sorry, I was thinking, I was hesitating and thinking. All right, I'm going to try and wipe that glue off my hands just a little bit. Baby wipes are like so important. All right, so the final thing, yep, believe it or not, we are almost done, is I'm going to take my Posca markers. I'm going to set this aside, just this piece, just because it's got so much of that white on it. And I'm going to do two different things with this. One of the things I want to do is just do some scribble writing on it, and actually I'm going to grab an orange one first. And I'm going to do some, the orange does soak in a little bit, so over time it's not quite as bright. So it's just a little highlight. Ah, there we go. Kind of like that. But like I said, that'll soak in a little bit and not be quite so obvious later on. So the next thing I'm going to do is just put some little scribbles on here. Kind of anchor my little hearts. Same thing over here. Just going to outline my little hearts a little bit. A little bit of black can go, like red, can go a long ways. And what I like about that coming down from the top is that that gives me kind of a place to journal a little bit. So, and I've been, this is one of my things for this year, is I really want to get a little bit better at just scribbling. Hello, Andrea, thank you. at just scribbling. If you notice on here, just some things that I'm thinking that maybe nobody else necessarily has to read. So that simply says, I love you, and a little exclamation point. But you know what? I don't know that anybody's going to be able to read that, and that's okay with me. Just a little note. And see, I just picked a part where I could kind of follow something that was going on in the background there. Thanks for being you. I so appreciate you. And you know, part of the trick to that writing, that scribbling, is just doing a lot of practice and just really enlarging some of your more natural. So thanks. See what you can do with that. See what you can do with the S. So you're taking things that are already happening and making them bigger. Maybe accentuate the background, accentuate the background. It's kind of as simple as that. But, you know, if you're like waiting for the microwave sometime, just have a pad of paper there and say, microwave, I so appreciate how fast you are. I don't know, that's just a really silly comment. But sometimes if you make practicing fun, it's more fun. Hey, it's just that easy. So one more thing I'm going to show you, because I have really gotten into this later. Here's my water. Don't just kind of ignore how dirty it is, okay? And I'm going to take some orange, and this is a Neo color. See what I've done to the top here? And what I'm going to try and hit both of these at the same time. What I'm going to do is take my paintbrush. I'm going to get this wet. Maybe use clean water. I'm going to get it really wet. I find I have to like dip the crayon in there, or it doesn't work that well for me. And then I'm going to try not to have any big drips, because these are kind of small. And then look at how that splatters. And you know what is the most fun about that is it's not all over my room here. I mean, I do have a corner in our storeroom, so not too particular about getting things messy. But when you're sitting at your desk, here's another fabulous color. Not quite the blue of the background. I don't know if I have my darker blue in here. Let me see if I do, because that would fit in with the colors we're already using. Don't have my favorite blue, tell you that. I have a purple though, so let's set this aside. Even though I love that color, I'm gonna kind of try and stay with what we're doing. This one hasn't been used for a background before. You can tell it has all that paper on it, but that's okay. Just a little bit. And then I don't even have to wash the blue off for the purple. It's a little bit darker purple. I'll just put a couple of... What do you think? We are done. That is it. That's all I'm doing. So I hope you enjoyed this morning. I want to thank you for being here, even though it's the crack of dawn here in the middle of the country, here in the frigid Northwest. We're expecting better temperatures though. So anyway, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining me. I just want to say, share the love. Do something this week that will share the love. If you make a postcard on your own, no matter what it looks like, please share it on our I Create Facebook page. And I will be posting my post for the rest of the week, either later on today or early tomorrow. Love to all of you guys. Hugs.